we're looking at something that could be propaganda or it could be a warning to the people about the things to come. We're going to be looking at the London Telegraph here in a moment, and they recently produced a series of comic book strips in the London Telegraph under the arts section, depicting martial law, cities in the United States blown up, possible false flags to usher in a police state. And we also see suggestions that a North American Union is coming. There isn't any explanation in this particular comic book strip as to what the author's intention is. Again, are they warning us or is this propaganda? There's no description whatsoever, and they've released 4 parts to this Operation Blackjack comic book strip. And they just released part 4. They released part 3 a couple weeks ago. So people are alarmed by this, how it's strikingly similar to the stuff that we're talking about on this show and some of the things that others are talking about in the alternative media, the concept of the breakup of the U.S. or the concept of a North American Union, civil unrest, martial law, things of that nature. So with that, we're going to go through the slideshow piece by piece. You make up your own minds as to what you believe, as to why you think this is being put out there. Again, is this a warning or is this something along the lines of predictive programming? Like in a movie, first we see it and then it manifests and we go, oh yeah, we saw that in a movie. Yeah, it's reality now. You know, people don't go, well, wait a minute, why did they put this in a movie years ago before it happened? Like with 9/11 and things like the Lone Gunman episode and things of that nature. The opposite happens. They just seem to accept it in a weird, bizarre way. So now we see this with the comic book. Here we have in part 1, we have an apparent fictional depiction of terror attacks in the Western world, which, as you'll see later, impacts our lives greatly, leading to martial law. Bioweapons are mentioned, and for those of you in the studio, we're going to go rapidly, slide by slide. Bioweapons are mentioned. They show us ministers warning of the event in the UK. At a lockup garage in southeast London, a package is loaded into a white van. I want you to notice the symbolism of the sun on the barrel. Find that to be very interesting. Mass exodus on all major roads. Police and security raid known militants. In the next slide, if you can go to that. Panic buying leaves shelves empty in the UK. In the next slide. Just go from slide to slide. Pumps run dry and drivers stock up on fuel. A white van is parked near Victoria, London. Notice the symbol on the van. Again, we're back to the sun. You guys see that? So this van that seems to have a barrel in it full of explosives, who knows what, is represented by the sun. Very interesting symbolism. And here we have the attack on London. So this is the end of part 1. This is basically a slideshow, and it kind of moves into comic book format in part 3, but so far it's a culmination of slides painting a very dark reality. Now here's part 2. We have an attack in New York City. Multiple cities are attacked on the same day. We also have an attack in D.C. We also have the attack in Toronto. Here we have the attack in Mexico City. And here we have the attack in Portland. Yes, Portland is involved in this plot. And here we have the attack in Los Angeles. So America is truly waking up to a new nightmare. In part 3, in the plot, it appears the powers are working behind the scenes to create these events. Martial law is declared. Okay? We're getting real used to hearing about martial law being declared. Again, suggestions that there's a shadowy group behind it all in this slide right here. And, of course, martial law. These are known as the new 9/11 events taking place on June 22nd, I believe, 2009. The people watch the TV for answers and the information, as they have already been conditioned to do over time, which people are already doing right now. They're listening to the loudspeaker. They're watching Barack Obama on TV. They're watching Gates, the defense secretary. They're watching the White House spokesman. In slide number 38, the UNA is announced. They don't call it a NAU. North American Union. They call it the Union of North America, which is still pretty close. Same initials, U, N, and A, just like the NAU. They also announced war declarations with countries such as Iran, Syria, and China in this particular comic book strip. Internment camps are created in the next one. And troops descend throughout the Western world in major population zones to deal with civil unrest, rioting, etc., etc. Here on the next slide, we see the arrow on the lower right-hand side of the screen. Very interesting. And now we see the flag of the Union of North America. And again, stay home and await further instructions. Now let's finish up with part 4 and get back to the news. In part 4, the comic book strip provides a glimpse into what the world was going through just a year prior to the new 9/11 events on June 22nd. Talks of an oil crisis and a population boom. Decadence has become endemic. Personal and national debts have exploded, and our enemies have grown stronger. Now a new regime threatens to undermine our way of life further. And if you look at the left side of the screen, go back. If you look at the left side of the screen and look up, what does that politician look like with the banner for change behind him? Operation Blackjack is born in the next slide. And if you look at the next slide, it looks like an intelligence plan to create multiple false flag attacks in multiple cities. There are references to the nukes that went missing and the plans for troops to be redeployed in the United States to deal with civil unrest, working directly for Northcom. Martial law plans are drawn up and problem areas are highlighted. There's Portland on the left side of the screen. To be continued in part 5. So that is where we are going to leave that. Spent a lot of time documenting this particular piece of potential propaganda. It's also a potential warning. And so we're starting to see more people talk about some of these things in pop culture. Sometimes it's propaganda, sometimes it's a warning.